program is still this morning on ITV. Welcome to the first segment of the program. Should you just be joining us now, and as usual, every Monday morning we start with the aviation. Don't worry, he is very much around. It's not like last week. He's already seated in the studio. You know him. He's gone far and wide on issue on aviation programs and events in many parts of the world. He also doubles as an estate surveyor and valuer. Well, we're supposed to be calling him an aviation expert, but he said no, he's not an expert, that he is a freak. And we ask most time, what is the difference between a freak and an expert? Well, Mr. Godwin Ike is seated in the studio. Very good morning to you.
Hi, good morning, Joe.
You're welcome.
How was your weekend?
Oh, thank God.
Wonderful. I heard you spent 3 straight days, working for that's great. That's great. Yeah. Hard work is commendable.
Yes, thank you.
Right,
I'm shocked how you come to know how I spend days working.
Well, Joe, I'm following up everything around me. I work around the clock also, with all due humility.
Okay, quickly this morning, Mr. Aviation freak, a non-pilot that teaches pilots on the issue of aircraft, the faithful machine. Quickly, today we are going to be looking at flaps, different types of flaps.
Definitely.
Touch a little of what flaps are.
Do you notice that when you're coming to land, for instance, you hear this winding noise that makes you hear it? And some plates from the trailing edge, I'm going to show you the trailing edge, start, coming down. Those plates that are deployed, are known as flaps. And they have the duty of, giving more air pressure, to the flight at low speed. That is to say, they reduce the required speed before you get to stall. If you don't have them and you slow down to the speed required for landing, that plane might stall and drop off the skies. So by deploying the flaps, you create the possibility of slowing down further without stalling, and it also gives you the drag that helps you deploy air brakes in order to further slow down the aircraft.
So are you saying without the flap it would be difficult for you to apply brake?
No, it's not. That's not. I mean, you can always apply even in the air your reverse thrust, which slows down the aircraft. But also by deploying flaps, you create drag, which helps to further slow down the aircraft. And not only slowing down the aircraft, it also enables the aircraft to remain suspended in the air at lower speed. Otherwise, you will require faster speed to keep that aircraft in the air. So we're going to see the different types. So we're going to define it.
So much in our
yes, because today is about 16 clips.
Clip one, you can have clip one. Let's start quickly. We really have to manage time this morning. Okay, that's clip one.
Right. Definition of flap. Flap is a device installed in an aircraft to increase the lift of an aircraft wing at a given airspeed, usually mounted on the wing trailing edge and a fixed wing aircraft. It is used to lower the minimum speed at which the aircraft can safely be flown. It also increases the angle of descent for landing. I'm going to explain all those to you. As flaps also cause an increase in drag, I just said that to you a moment ago, they are usually retracted when not needed. If you come back to me very quickly, I'm going to show my viewers using our little aircraft in the studio. This is your airfoil. That's the wing of the aircraft, is usually also known as the airfoil. All right. The leading edge of the wing is this front part. Those are known as the leading edge. You are going to see these terminologies as we move on, and that's why I want to explain that to you to understand. And the trailing edge is the rear part of the airfoil. So keep it in memory. When you say leading, be ahead. When you say trailing, coming behind. That means the rear is the trailing edge on the front of the, so anything that we say that is attached at the leading edge, know that it's attached in front of the wing. If we say it's attached at the trailing edge, know that it's attached at the rear wing. Having said that, run quickly to clip 2 so that our viewers will get to understand. So types of flaps. Here are different types of flaps designed and installed in different airplanes. Number 1 is a plain flap. Number 2, split flap. 3, slotted flap. 4, Fowler flap. 5, Junkers flap. 6, gauge flap. 7, fairy young man flap. That is going to interest you, the fairy young man. When we get there, then you see why the aviation freak should also be respected. You don't have to be a pilot or aeronautic engineer to offer something to the aviation sector. We're going to see that. Now, Zap flap is your number 8. Number 9 is Kruger flap. 10, Gurney flap. 11, leading edge flap. 12, blown flap. 13, flexible flap, and 14, the flaperon. Now, the pictures you're looking at, if you take time, I will even authorize you to get a shot of it on the different forms and the different types of flaps that I just mentioned, above the 2 photographs you have. So take a look at them and you will understand it. Otherwise, if you miss it, go tomorrow morning to your YouTube and you will be able to watch complete whole 30 minutes of this program as you're watching them live right now. Let's move quickly to clip 3. Clip 3, please. Here we go. That's the plain flap, the first one. Or desired rather. The plain flap, scarcely in use now, is in form of the rear portion of the airfoil. I had told you about the airfoil a moment ago, rotating downwards. You take a look at that picture of that airplane with the flap rotating downwards on a simple hinge. Can you see the hinge right attached to the trailing edge? I just mentioned to you about trailing edge of the airfoil. So it says it's a simple hinge mounted at the front of the flap. So that is the plain flap for you. If we move to clip 4, our viewers will see a lot more. Now, split flap. Invented by the duo of Orville Wright and James M.H. Jacobs in 1920. Can you see how long this has been going on? Airplane has come a very long way. The split flap is in form of the rear portion of the lower surface of the airfoil, hinging downwards from the leading edge of the flap, while the upper surface stays immobile. Take a look at that photograph and see the leading edge of the airfoil. You see a separation. Can you see a separation? While the leading edge remains constant, where it is, there is a separation, coming out of it, to give you the flap effect. So, and that is called the split flap. It's a type of flap designed for, giving you the desired service in the airplane. Now, move to clip 5, please. Here we go. Slotted flap. Slotted flap is one that allows air to pass between the wing and the flap. A gap between the flap and the wing forces high pressure air from below the wing over the flap, helping the airflow remain attached to the flap, thereby increasing lift compared to a split flap. Now take a look at that. You can see that that is the trailing edge of the airfoil, and is telling you that the slotted flap is attached in such a way that air is allowed to pass from beneath. You see that point that the separation is, right? And then that airflow, remains attached as the plane is steering away in the air on the plate, which is a flap that has come down, giving you the air pressure required to sustain the airplane at low speed, and also giving you the required drag. Can we go to clip 6, please? This is Fowler flap. I have posted the picture below in order to show you how that is attached. You can see it as the last one there beneath on the photograph as a Fowler flap. That will give you an idea of how it's attached to the airfoil. Invented by Harlan D. Fowler in 1924 and tested by Fred Wick in 1932. The Fowler flap first slides backwards before hinging downwards, thereby increasing first chord, then camber. Come back to me. Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that question, because I love the way you're following this program. You need to, really. I hope my viewers are also following the way you're doing. All right, my dear viewers, take a look at this airplane. The middle of this airfoil has an imaginary line known as the chord, running from one end to the other, are the middle. Now, the curvature, when a deployment is made either on the leading edge or on the trailing edge, depending on the design of the flap we're talking about, that curve that is created, taking the middle line, that's known as the chord, that curve that is created underneath is known as a camber. All right? So the chord separates, the two ends and creates a curve that, of course, gives you air pressure, underneath. That curve is known as camber. All right. So that is the word you just saw on the screen. Where are we?
I also know that the camber definitely has function. Maybe we'll get to that sometime.
No, the function is already been discussed. By that deployment, you create higher air pressure on the wings, and then of course you create lift, which enables the aircraft to slow down without stalling. Remember what I taught you about stalling when we did stalling. If you get to a speed slower than the required speed that can keep that airplane in the sky, your engines will be busy blasting away, and you know what, Joe? The plane just stops flying. It drops off the sky vertically, and once it starts dropping,
that is the angle of attack.
Well, the angle of attack is something like this. For instance, you're supposed to actually be flying level. Even when you're taking off, as soon as you get off the ground, you must push forward on your stick and reduce. This is what is known as the angle of attack. That is an angle at which the air flow is hitting the airfoils. You must and for you to have airspeed, you must reduce this angle of attack so that airspeed would increase. If it's too high, it slows down the aircraft in the sky, and as soon as the speed gets lower, than what can sustain that model of aircraft, it goes into a stall. And if you don't check it quickly by reducing your angle of attack and increasing speed, as soon as the plane begins to drop off the sky vertically, you are doomed. You are doomed. It must hit the ground. Except and only if you have height advantage way up in the sky, 30, 35, 40,000 feet, and then you're able to push on your stick, take a dive, gain some speed, level off, and begin again to climb. That is the only way you can escape from a stall. Otherwise, if you don't have height advantage and you start dropping, you are doomed.
Which therefore means
you're doomed. You must hit the ground.
Good to always get height advantage.
Well, it depends on what you're doing and where you're going and how soon you're going to be landing. So it depends on where it happens. If it happens when you're doing your final approach, I'm sorry, you're doomed. If you stall, you must hit the ground. That's the way it works. Now, clip 7, please. 7, please. Junkers flap. I hope we'll be able to run through these 16 clips. Invented by Automeda at Junkers in the late 1920s. Slotted plane flaps where the flap is fixed below the trailing edge of the wing, rotating about its forward edge and usually forming the inboard hinge section. In spite of its mechanical simplicity, it is more effective at creating additional lift than a plain or split flap. Take a look at that small aircraft. Can you see at the trailing edge, that is the rear portion of the airfoil. Can you see that short, separated?
Yes, yes.
That is the junkers flap. In most of these smaller aircraft, the junkers flap do dual function. It can act as your aileron. Remember I taught you about aileron, where one will press down. If you're going to be banking left, for instance, the one at the right will press down and increase the air pressure on that wing. The one on the left will lift up simultaneously, reducing pressure on that wing. So high pressure on right wing, low pressure on left wing, and then you get your left bank. Can you see that how it works? And vice versa. In small aircraft like that, the junkers flap will do that dual function of giving you a flap for your lift and slow speed at landing and air pressure, and at the same time work as your aileron. But for bigger aircraft, we're going to see that soon. The flaps will have to combine with your slate to give you, but we'll get there. Clip 8, please. Clip 8, please. Gauge flap. Invented by Arthur Gauge for Short Brothers in 1936. It is a type of split flap that slides backward along curved tracks that force the trailing edge downward. I mean, now that you know what is trailing edge, you understand what this English is trying to describe to you. I couldn't get you the photo to let you see exactly what it is, but it's not different from what you've seen so far. But the system of attachment, the increasing chord and camber. I've talked to you about chord, and I've talked to you about camber. Now you understand what it is without affecting trim. Remember we did that with trim the last time, or requiring any additional mechanisms. That's the gauge flap for you. Clip 9, please. Very young man flap. This type of flap first drops downward like the junkers flap. Remember we saw junkers before sliding down. Rotating up or down. When in the extended position, it could be angled up, that is the negative angle of incidence, so that the aircraft could be dived vertically without needing excessive trim changes. Remember the trim that I told you about, when the pilot wants to really get his hands off his joystick, and keep the plane flying. You adjust the trim in such a way that those controlling surfaces will be stabilized and giving you horizontal perfect flight, so that you don't keep using your joystick to keep the aircraft where you want it. If by flying you notice your aircraft has the business of either tipping up its nose or wanting to tip down, and making you all the time move your joystick forward, or when you're not flying,
always keeping you in check.
That's right. When you're not flying in auto, if you're flying manually, then you use the trim, usually attached by the side of the lower seat of the pilot. You trim it, you keep trimming it until you notice that the airplane has stabilized, and you don't have to be making input of your joystick. That's the trimming knob for you. All right, get to the next one, please, quickly.
10. Clip 10.
Clip 10, please. Right, zap flap, invented by Edward F. Zaparka in 1932. The leading edge of the flap is mounted on a track, while a point at mid-cut on the flap is connected via an arm to a pivot just above the track. When the I'm so sorry,
when the
flaps.
Please
correct that word in the next. It's flaps, not flaps. It's a typographical error there. When the flaps leading edge moves aft along the track, the triangle formed by the track, the shaft and the surface of the flap get narrower and deeper, forcing the flap down. That is a zap. 11, please. Kruger, very interesting flap. Kruger, take a look at that photograph, Joe. You see the trailing edge, all those attachments coming down. They're usually found in very big jets that need a lot of air pressure. Invented by Warner Kruger in 1943 and evaluated in Göttingen, Kruger flaps are found on many modern swept-wing airliners. So all these big airliners that you have today, that is the kind of flap that the manufacturers have found very useful. They are attached to them. It consists of a hinged flap which folds out from under the wing's leading edge. Why not forming part of the leading edge of the wing when retracted? This increases the camber and the thickness of the wing, which in turn increases lift and drag. You can see, if you take a look at the leading edge there again, you see, can you see a forward drop just by look at that, the side of the engine on the inner part? Can you see them there?
Yeah.
Very well. Clip 12. Clip 12, please. Gunny flap. Although discovered in the 1930s, but rarely used and forgotten. When it was discovered in 1930, it was rarely used and forgotten. The gun was named after a racing car driver. Joe, racing car driver, rediscovered this gunny flap. So he wasn't a pilot. He wasn't, an aeronautic engineer.
Perhaps a freak like you.
A mad freak. Who was also driving sports car and just thought that something that helps airplanes in the air can help his race car perform better at high speed. So he rediscovered that. Let's go back to it. Now, the gunny flap. So the gunny flap was named after a racing car driver, Dan Gunny, who rediscovered it in 1971. Can you see? Between 1930 and 1971, almost 40 years. And then it consists of a small fixed perpendicular tab of between 1 and 2% of the wing card, mounted on the high pressure side of the trailing edge of an airfoil. So I've just shown you a gunny flap that is attached to a helicopter on the left. The photograph on the left is a helicopter. You can see the rear rotor that controls the torque. Remember I taught you about torque? That's right. So the one in blue is the gunny flap that helps to stabilize the helicopter and give it a higher performance. And that is a schematic. On the right is a schematic diagram of the gunny flap and how it's attached. Let's move quickly to 13, please. Leading edge flap and slit. Interesting one. This is most commonly found on jet fighters with very thin wings. It comprises of the entire leading edge of the wing rotating downward, effectively increasing camber. Remember the camber? That curve that is created when those plates and slates are deployed. And also slightly reducing chord. Can you see on the left photograph? Can you see the wing? Can you see the deployment of the leading edge flap in front of it? Oh, yeah, creating a camber for you. The same on the photograph on the left. So if you take a closer look, viewers, take a shot of it and take a closer look and learn how this works. Now, 14, please. Blown flap. Blown flaps blown flaps pass engine generated air or exhaust over the flaps to increase lift better than mechanical flaps can attain. Can you see that? There are three types of blown flaps exist. One is internally blown flaps, reputed to be the original blown flap developed. This blows compressed air from the engine over the top of the flap. And the second is externally blown flap. This blows engine exhaust over the upper and lower surfaces. Can you see the difference? Lower surfaces of the flap. And the third is the upper surfaces blown flap. This blows engine exhaust over the top of the wing and the flap. So those are the three different types of blown flap. 15, please. Flexible flap, fondly known as flex foil. This operates like wing warping. An internal mechanical actuator bends a lattice which changes the airfoil shape. That is flexible flap. It's like having your airfoil, flexible, and then having a mechanical thing twisting it to increase the camber for you, rather than having plates attached. So that's the flexible. 16.
16, the last.
16, yes, 16. The most interesting of them all, the flaperon. Flaperon is a portmanteau word. You know when we say portmanteau, when you combine two words to form a single word.
Like a compound word.
That's correct. You call them portmanteau. A portmanteau word coined from flap and aileron. That's the flaperon is a kind of aircraft control surface which combines the functions of both flaps and ailerons. If you take a look at that photograph, with all the names, you see how the middle one is a flaperon, while the one on the left and right of the airfoil are the flaps. In most big aircraft, what you find is a combination that is controlled by a mixer. Normally, when those flaps are deployed, they're deployed simultaneously with the flaperon, which is like an aileron. They deploy together. But in bigger aircraft that have electronic mixers installed in them, what happens is that as the pilot puts in his control, maybe a joystick to the left in order to give you a left bank, the mixer gauges how much of the flap deployment that takes place, and then deploys the flaperon in a little what's the word I'm looking for, extent that is required for optimum performance. So that's what the mixer does for you.
Despite the various type of flaps we have,
yes,
the question that will just come to the mind is, which of them is the best?
Joe, lovely question you just asked. You can't pin your finger, really. It depends on the design of the aircraft and what the aircraft is designed to achieve. The heavy load carrying aircraft, you saw the one attached to jumbo jets, I think those were the junkers, and you can't really pin your finger on anything other than that. When you design an aircraft, it is designed for a purpose to achieve a particular goal. The appropriate flap amongst all that's been designed over the years will be attached there in order to give you optimum performance. So at all times.
Now, again, the long and short of flap is that it helps the airplane to reduce speed.
It helps the airplane to stay in the skies at reduced speed. Because, for instance, if an aircraft, let me give you an example with ray figures. If an aircraft, it has a minimum speed of 300 knots or maybe 250 knots as the slowest speed that aircraft can do in the air and stay in the air. By deployment of your flaps, it will be possible to reduce the speed to about 150 knots.
Good. So
and still keep it in the air.
Keep it in the air.
Yeah.
It helps reduce speed and keep it in the air.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to passengers, there's the need. Why we're doing this is to help air travelers.
Yeah.
If you are in an airplane and the flaps malfunction, how do you know?
Joe, it's a serious thing. The malfunction is usually in form of more often than not in form of ice. If you have ice attaching itself at the hinges where these things move and stiffen up, and if your warming system is not working, or the pilot turned it off and forgot to put it back on and then acquires ice, you see that they get stiff. Then that movement that will help you do what you need to do will not be there. If it follows that if it happens and is deployed in the negative position, for instance, the airplane begins to slow down. It's dangerous, extremely dangerous.
And that may be leading to a doom.
That's correct.
Okay,
but the truth about it is that this machine is awesome and very faithful.
Yes,
you have a lot of redundancies.
You always talk about the fact that the machine is faithful. Well,
yeah.
Faithful machine. This is where we'll wrap up the discussion for today. Viewers, I'm sure you enjoyed every bit of the discussion, flaps and its type. It has been with the aviation freak, Mr. Godwin Ike. He's also a licensed estate surveyor.
Valuer.
Of course, the profile quickly can be on air for us, for viewers to see. Yes, that's it. Go close. You can snap and whatever you want from him. You can beep him. You can email him. You can, of course, go into social media. You can do quite a lot, with the aviation freak. That is the much we have today on the program. Once again, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Same time, same station next week.
And that will be Bet Strike.
Bet Strike, yeah. Bet Strike.
Yes.
One of the reasons why the Arik
made an air return. No, it wasn't Arik. Dana made air return. We're going to see what it means and what can be done to stop it.
Until then, we'll take a quick break.
All right.
The program continues thereafter.